Julius Jones is scheduled to be executed for murder he says he didn't commit. Now he's seeking clemency for nearly 2 decades. Jones, who is black, has been on death row for a crime he did not commit, his clemency petition says, because of fundamental breakdowns in the system tasked with deciding his guilt, including ineffective and inexperienced defense attorneys, racial bias among his jury and alleged prosecutorial misconduct. But Paul Howell's family and the Oklahoma Attorney General's office have refuted Jones' innocent claims and believe he's guilty of Howell's murder. Millions have voiced support for Jones. Jones' case has attracted widespread attention in recent years, in part due to the ABC documentary series The Last Defense, which spotlighted his case in 2018. The support goes beyond his family and celebrities. More than 6.4 million people have signed a change.org petition asking Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, a Republican, to prevent his execution. "I appreciate that we have the help now," she said, "because we didn't have that 22 years ago." That was echoed by Cece Jones Davis, the director of the Justice for Julius campaign, which aims to raise awareness of Jones' case and lobby for clemency. Before The Last Defense, she said there weren't many people aware of Jones' case. But she believes the broad support today has made a difference.
"I don't know where we would be," she said. "I think it has meant the absolute world, that people have come together and that numbers of supporters are fighting for Julius." Jones supporters are hopeful. Monday's hearing will take place before the same parole board that recommended in September Jones' sentence be commuted to life in prison with the possibility of parole. But a week later, an execution date was set by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals, prompting the clemency hearing. Ultimately, the decision for clemency lies with the governor, who said in a letter to the parole board last month he would not make a decision based on their recommendation Jones' sentence be commuted, saying instead a clemency hearing would be the appropriate venue for his case to be considered. "I am not accepting the pardon and parole board's recommendation to commute the sentence of Julius Jones," Stitt wrote, "because a clemency hearing, not a commutation hearing, is the appropriate venue for our state to consider death row cases." Support for Jones is extremely tough on victims' family. Daughters says overall, "This has been extremely tough on our family," she said, "as we have continued to be re-victimized by Julius Jones when we have done absolutely nothing wrong. We are hoping at the clemency hearing this Monday that the pardon and parole board view all sides of this case and make a fair and unbiased decision," she said. Jones was arrested at the age of 19. Howell was murdered in a carjacking the night of July 28, 1999. Around 9:30 p.m. Howell, his adult sister and his daughters pulled into his parents' driveway in his 1997 Suburban, according to court documents. Howell's sister told his daughters to gather their belongings and was exiting the vehicle when she heard a gunshot, court documents say. Howell's sister glanced back, court documents say, and saw a black man she said was wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, a black cap and a red bandana over his face. The shooter fired again as Howell's sister and his daughters ran to the house, documents say. Howell died around 1:45 the next morning. Jones, 19 at the time, was arrested 3 days later on July 31, the day after authorities found the murder weapon wrapped in a red bandana inside his family's home. He was tried alongside a co-defendant, Christopher Jordan, who was sentenced to 30 years in prison after pleading guilty to first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit a robbery, per online court records. Jordan testified against Jones, who was convicted and sentenced to death. In his clemency petition, Jones' attorneys contend his conviction was the result of numerous failures, like his inexperienced, overworked, and under-resourced public defenders. None had handled a death penalty case before Jones, and at trial, the attorneys did not present any evidence or call a single witness in Jones' defense during the stage of his trial where his guilt was determined, the petition says. As a result, evidence his team says would have exonerated Jones was never presented to the jury. For example, Jones' family says he was home with them the night of the murder, the petition says. The jury was also not shown a photo of Jones, taken days before Howell's killing, that the petition says would have shown he did not match the shooter's description. Several jurors have come forward and indicated this evidence might have changed the outcome of the case. There's also the issue of alleged racial bias. According to the petition, one juror later said they heard another juror refer to Jones as the N-word. Additionally, when Jones was arrested, a police officer also called him the N-word. The petition alleges. Jones' attorneys instead point to his co-defendant, Jordan. The petition cites several individuals who say Jordan has admitted he was the one who actually killed Howell. One of those individuals says Jordan told him he'd hidden the murder weapon and the bandana inside Jones' house. The petition says Jordan spent the night at the home the day after the murder. Jordan was released from prison in 2014, according to Jones' clemency petition. Jones' clemency petition also takes issue with prosecutors' use of confidential informants in his case and alleges prosecutors misled the jury by not revealing the deals they'd offered to the prosecution's witnesses, including Jordan. The Attorney General's office disputes this, saying the jury was aware of those benefits and they did not impact his trial. Jones had his day in court. Rachel Howell and her family, however, fully believe Jones is guilty of Paul Howell's murder. The family decided to begin speaking up this year because the truth was being buried and we needed to have a voice for our loved one, she said, and so the family set up its own website, Justice for Paul Howell. The fact is Julius Jones murdered Paul Howell in cold blood in front of his sister and daughters, then Attorney General Mike Hunter said last year as he released information in an effort to refute what his office characterized as mistruths about the case. For example, regarding Jones' claim of an alibi, the AG's office said the alibi was thoroughly investigated and not found to be credible, adding the claim was explored in an evidentiary hearing ordered by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. Jones himself was inconsistent on where he was the night of the murder, the AG's office said, adding two of Jones' trial attorneys testified he told them his family was mistaken and he was not home when Howell was killed.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe